Hey, it's Ken Lewis, audioschoolonline.com. Welcome back. So this lesson is going to be mixing hip-hop instrumentals, session 3. This is like a club anthem type of beat. Lots of 808 drums, 808 kicks and snares, lots of synthesizers, nothing really sampled. It's got one little sample in it, but I mean it could just as easily be a synth sound. And then it's got this kind of big kick mixed with 808s. So I'm going to take you through the entire mix from faders down to finished. Right now you're listening to a rough mix. I always like to kind of get a basic rough mix together and vibe with it before I start trying to do a finished mix, so that I can get a really detailed picture in my brain of where I want the music going and how the music interacts with each other, how it works together. That way when I'm kind of pulling up all of the individual elements, I can tell, like, okay, does this kick drum need a ton of low end, or do I just want it really to punch through the mid range? Like, what are my main elements? With this, it feels like that horn thing is a pretty crucial kind of plotting element that keeps the beat moving. And then you have the kind of the guitar that takes a melody, big piano chords, lots of stuff going on. This is going to be a fun one to mix. So I'm going to ditch the rough mix that the producer gave me, and I'm going to start from scratch and just get a real quick rough mix together so I can listen to each individual sound, see what it's doing, and start putting this thing together. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm turning my monitor volume up, just how loud my speakers are. I'm turning that way up so that I don't have to push up the faders so high in order for the impact of the sounds to be coming through the speakers right. So I'm going to start with my volume really high so I can keep a lot of headroom on the mix bus. And if you see, here's the kick I'm working on now. You'll see I got maybe about minus 12 dB on the master fader right now, which is pretty good. I think by the time everything else is in, it'll probably be more like hitting minus 4s and 3s. For the lesson, I'm keeping my my headroom a little bit hotter than I would normally, just because I want you to be able to hear the music over my voice. So anyway, let me get started on this rough. All the sub is going to come from this kick 2, and all of the kind of character at the top of it. This kick 1 is like that kind of 909-ish type, really punchy type. There's one of those main elements I was talking about. So these horns are going to be the ones that do a lot of the driving of the melody of the beat. Same with this organ when it's playing. Good sounding pits. So that's one of the main melodic elements that kind of carries the melody of the beat. Nice. Okay, so he used this entire sample from some orchestral piece and really made it work well with his beat. I'll probably probably put some nice reverb on that. So a lot of times, you know, I'll go through when I'm rough mixing the beat. Some things only play in certain areas, like the snare roll only comes once so often. So I'll find a way to just loop that snare roll and just work on that for a minute. Maybe work on 1 bar or 2 bars at a time until I've got it balanced, and then I'll go back to the full mix. Okay, my rough mix is done. Everything's feeling kind of balanced. One of the most important things that I can ever impart to you is the most important part of mixing is just getting good balances right and getting things to feel musically good. You know, sonics are important, but to me, sonics are secondary to how everything works together, how it feels together. You know, how just does it feel coherent? I think young mixers, the biggest mistake that you make is that you over-process everything. You listen to a kick drum and immediately you reach for an equalizer and start digging in. Kick drum might not need anything. It might just need to be placed into the mix correctly. It might need a lot of work to it, but don't necessarily assume that just because you have the tools that you need to use them. Get your balances together and then start figuring out what the next smart step is as far as you know, where you want to take this mix. The first thing I'm going to start looking at is, let's see, I wanted to put a reverb on that clave, so maybe I'll start there. I'll start with some effects kind of stuff. I'm liking the balances. I don't think it's needing a ton right now. So I'm going to start creating some space for the instruments that I do have. So that clave, I probably will go maybe Lexicon, Random Hall. All right, let's see. It's on bus 1 and 2. Just to make sure I'm picking the right reverb, I'm going to try Lexicon Chamber and see what that gets me. I think I like the chamber better for this song. It's just more dense. I think it's going to hang up in the mix a bit better. Cool, so that takes care of the clave. Sound-wise, it sounds like a clave to me. I'm probably not going to change it. Let's see what else is on. Let me take a look at these horns. It's a little piercing in the mid-range, which I don't mind. They're horns, they're kind of supposed to be. But, you know, I'm worried that it's going to be right where the rapper wants to where his voice is going to work best. So I'm going to pull a little bit of that mid-range out, take it, remove it, as I'm doing here with the 2K. I've got -6 at 2K. Let's see what this sounds like to start. So I emphasize this, only take it out if it needs it. You know, horns, I wouldn't necessarily do this to just any horn. I think this needs to be warmed up a little bit. It needs kind of a bigger bottom end, and hear that French horn, da, da, da. That's what I'm kind of trying to bring out with this 250 band and 500 band. That sounds really good. I'm just going to try just a touch of really high top end on the hat and see if it just cuts through the mix a little bit better. I don't think it needs it. It gives it a little bit of shine. I don't really think it's doing much. That drum doesn't need anything. It sounds exactly the way it should. Wow, this 808 is huge. I'm going to compress the 808 a little bit and see if I can get it to sustain a little bit longer. See, this thing, it's pretty good already. A lot of 808s will like kind of hit and die, and you have this constant like, you know, you have a ton of low end, then it's gone, then a ton of low end, then it's gone. So I'm going to try and compress this 808 a little bit and just see if I can get it to rumble underneath the mix for the entire time. And maybe I'll start with, let's go UAD Fairchild. Let's see what that gets me. So the Fairchild's evening it out a little bit. I'm going to try and get it even flatter, maybe with Massey 2007. Now let's go L2. It's a little easier to adjust. Okay, so this is working nicely, but if you've been noticing, I slowed the release of the limiter down to about 269 milliseconds, so it's a bit of a slower release now. You know, if your release gets too fast, your 808s start to buzz, and sometimes I really like that because it'll help the 808 kind of cut through the mix sometimes. It'll give it a little bit of distortion. But the way this 808 is working with this beat, I think the 808 just wants to be in the subs and down there rumbling. But let me pull the release all the way down to super fast release so you can kind of hear that buzzing effect that I'm talking about. And then as I slow it down, you'll hear it gradually, that buzzing effect will go away and you'll just be left with solid low end. Hopefully you can hear that on your own system. It's pretty plain as day here. Let's see how that sounds in the mix. So now it's kind of, to me, it's acting a lot more like a bass line, where it's just that 808 is just sitting under there rolling through the whole thing. You don't really lose your low end. It's always just kind of there, moving the subs and you know, having that impact. Most of the time I would leave this alone, but since this is being used kind of as a filler sound and not to really keep time, I think I'm going to try spreading it out a little bit and just letting the hi-hats stay in the center, and then I'll widen out the ride so it's just kind of more washy. Let me try, let's see what Waves Doubler does. So many kind of spreading programs. Usually I like Digi-Rack. I'm just trying something new here. That's too chorusy for me. Let me try Eventide Ultra Channel. So the only thing I'm going to use is this micro pitch shift. So I'm going to keep the mix at maybe 46%. The width I'm going to get all the way wide, and then the size I tend to reduce way down. That's okay. Still a little too flangy for me. So I'm going to go back to the old standby. Short delay to mono to stereo. And then I've got all of these presets that I have built in. Ken mono to stereo 1, 2, 3. Hear how these subtle changes in the settings make a really huge sonic difference. There's very little difference between my Ken Mono 2 Stereo 2 to Ken Mono 2 Stereo 3. All I'm doing is adding a touch of depth and rate to the modulation on the delay, and you can all of a sudden hear it get real kind of chorusy. If I take that depth away, now there's no modulation on it. Much more phase coherent, much less kind of washy, and that's really what I'm going for with this. I like the weight of this drum. The kind of the lower mids are really solid and nice. I'm going to put a touch of just top end EQ on it to make sure that those snare rattles really cut through. You know, I like using the API graphic just so you can really see visually what I'm doing. But maybe it would be just as easy to use like a Ren EQ so you can kind of see the curves as I build them. Here it just has a bit more presence. I'm bringing some of the snare rattle stuff into the sound, not touching the bottom end. I like what the bottom end is doing. I'm going to add a touch of compression to this, just to make sure it stays nice and even. Neve 33609 from UAD would be really good for this. I'm just reducing the dynamic range so that it doesn't, you know, especially since it's a pad, you don't want it kind of popping out loud into the mix and then disappearing. I'm putting just a bit of compression on so that it stays kind of at the same volume the entire time that it plays, sits right where it belongs in the mix, doesn't go anywhere else, and you get it to do what it's supposed to do, which is just be a pad, and hence the name. Alright, I'm going to go back to my Cush Audio UBK1. I like this UBK1. You've probably seen me do it on other lessons as well. Certain settings, especially the splat setting, if you don't push it too hard, can really... my favorite thing about the UBK1 is it's a really colored sounding compressor. It's not like a super transparent, it's the exact opposite of that. So if you're looking for a compressor that's going to give you a certain characteristic, this one's got character for days. And you'll hear the splat setting, as I kind of just applied a little bit, should give it a bit more of an attack. Hear how when it's bypassed, it kind of just scrapes along and doesn't really have any kind of a defined start. And then when I engage the compressor, it gives it a much more powerful kind of attack to it. Now I'm going to try just a splash of reverb on this clap. I'm going to do two things to it. The first thing, I'm going to put a really short reverb just to give it some width. I've got all these Lexicon Room presets that I've built. Let's try, how about Tambourine Room? That doesn't sound like Tambourine Room. Where did my presets go? That's odd. It's not supposed to be doing that. Let me see if I can find a different room. And of course my dog is barking. Good old studio dog. Haha! That's why. Because I was feeding the wrong reverb. Very easy mistake to make if you're not careful. So this is on bus 5 and 6. I was feeding to bus 3 and 4 before. So let me try that Tambourine Room that I have stored again. Here it doesn't really sound like it's doing much, but all of a sudden you kind of hear it coming from both speakers instead of just the center. Now I'm going to add a touch of a splash to it. I'm going to try that UBK on this one as well. I just really like the way the UBK kind of bites at the sound and gives it this percussive attack to it. It's kind of exactly the opposite of the way I tend to use limiters. I tend to use limiters to remove the attack or lessen the attack and even things out, and I tend to use plugins like the UBK that on stuff that I want more attack but I'm not getting it. And let's see. Okay, so I'm on squish mode. I'm high pass filtering the side chain of the compressor up to, I think that's 300. So basically what that means is the compressor is not reacting. All frequencies are passing. Everything is going through, but the compressor is only reacting to frequencies above 300 hertz. So it's called a side chain. It basically is a separate signal that tells the compressor what to do while you're listening to the full thing pass it. So, you know, if you hear what this is doing, it's taking a very and it's keeping that attack on it, but it's bringing up kind of the underneath stuff, so it's more like da 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 instead of da 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 da. Listen again. So you can hear kind of the room or the body of the instrument, it's kind of bringing it up. So I'm hoping that this is going to let it hang in the mix a little bit easier, give your ear a little bit more to latch onto and identify. Do you hear how before the compressor is on it, sometimes the pitch kind of disappears into the mix, and the UBK is doing a really nice job of kind of evening out the entire sound and bringing up the depth of the sound so that your ears can latch onto it and find it. Okay, this needs some. I'm gonna put a. I want to dirty this up a bit. It's a little too pretty. Sound Toys Decapitator is one of my go-tos for this kind of stuff. Now all of these down here represent different emulations of what it's doing. I can't remember what they all are, but sometimes I'll go through them and just see. Almost always I end up on A or N for some reason. I'm not really sure why. So I'm even taking away just a touch of the very top end with this high cut on steep, just because again I think it sounds still a little too pretty. Not now, but before this was on. So this whistle could definitely use some verb, maybe some delay. First thing I'll try maybe is like a panning delay. like a ping pong delay. Let me try Echo Boy. Set it to tempo. I'm going to put it on this ping pong mode. My tempo is 82. That's pretty slow. I'm going to keep it on eighth notes. And I'm putting this on an aux, so I want my mix to be 100% wet. You'll hear the dry channel from the channel itself, and then this will be the return. Here's the feedback. I'm going to try Echoplex. Echoplex tends to sound a little more vintage, rolls off some of the top end. Where is this whistle? Here it is. Bus 7 and 8. So you can hear as I start and stop it what the delay is doing, but for the most part in the mix it's just kind of making it sound bigger. It sounds a whole lot like what a reverb would do. You know, I think for a sound like this, a ping pong delay or a reverb are fairly interchangeable, because all they're going to do is kind of support the sound and make the whole thing sound just a little bit kind of bigger and more ambient and more like eerie. So what I'm doing now, I switched off of my main speakers with the sub, and I was mixing really, really loud, and now I put it on my small little near field speakers, and I'm going to listen at low volume and still make sure that all my balances are right, that my drums are hitting, that everything is working together. Your ears hear differently at loud volume than soft volume, and you want to make sure that your mix sounds good, both super loud and really quiet. And B, you want to make sure that it sounds good on more than one pair of speakers, preferably as many speakers as you can kind of reference it to. I know my system really, really well, and I know what these speakers are telling me, and I know that if I get it sounding great on my mains and great on my near fields, then it's probably going to translate outside of this studio really, really well. So right now I'm going to go back to my small near fields, listen a bit more just for kind of balance and feel, and then I'm going to finish it off with on the mix bus. Cool, so now I'm on to the mix bus work. Just so you're following along, I don't even know if you can see it. Anyway, now I'm working on the master bus. So first thing I'm going to do is, normally I might reach for something like the Manly Massive Passive, something like kind of really high-end and sonically pretty. But on a beat like this that's already kind of raw and grimy and I want to keep it that way, I'm just going to try one of the Neve EQs across the mix bus, maybe a 1081. So I'm going to try just adding a little bit of overall top end. I don't really think it needs it, but it might benefit from it a little bit. So that's the first thing I'm going to try and do. Okay, I like what this is doing. I'm just giving it a 10K shelf. And I muted the hi-hat on purpose because that's kind of hindering my perception of what this is doing to the entire mix. So I'm going to get this sounding right to the entire mix minus the hi-hat, and then I'm going to add the hi-hat back, because the hi-hat is almost all 10K and up. So this is boosting that more than it's kind of boosting the rest of the elements in the mix. Then I'm going to just rebalance the hi-hats. Anytime you put an EQ across the whole mix, or a compressor, or whatever, sometimes it can certainly change certain balances and not others. You just got to be careful after you do it and listen and make sure that everything still sounds the way you want it. I might go for just a touch of kind of mid-range presence. I don't know if it needs it, but it might benefit. I think that actually sounds kind of nice. It just gives this kind of presence and solidity to the mid-range without kind of going overboard with it. I'm doing really fairly small changes. I'm not really tweaking much, and you can kind of hear the impact that they have on the overall mix as I'm doing it across everything on the mix bus. Before I finish this, I'm going to put a trailing delay on, I think, on these French horns. It's the orchestral sample. It has a trailing delay. I just think it needs to be a bit more. So that's maybe the last thing that I'll do, and then I'll put some compression on this. I'm going to try that same ping pong effect that I used on the whistle. This is really close. I just want that to be a little bit darker. So I'm actually going to copy this. And then I'm going to high cut a little bit and make this bus 9 and 10 instead of 7 and 8. So all I'm doing is I'm keeping that same setting, but I'm reducing some of the high frequency return from the delay. So let me see if you can hear it. So see, it still gives that sustain, but it gives your ear less to latch onto, and it makes it feel more like it's just decaying instead of like, oh, there's a repeat, there's a repeat on that horn swell. I don't really want it to sound like a repeat on the horn swell. I just want it to hang out a little bit longer and give my mix more mood. Cool, now I'm going to compress the overall mix bus. On this, one of my favorite finishing boxes is this TC Master X3. I tend to find, it took me about a year to find good settings on this, so pay attention if you own one. I usually set the digital ceiling to 0.01. No look ahead. No output dither. Dither, I don't know, I almost never dither anything. And then I disengage the limiter and the expander. It's already got a built-in brick wall limiter. The digital ceiling is a brick wall limiter, so it's going to stop dead anything that goes up to the top of your dynamic range, and it will not allow it to go into digital distortion. That's what this digital ceiling does. So this is kind of like a multi-layered tool here. You got a compressor, you got an expander gate if you want it. I usually don't. You have another limiter where you can set differently from the digital brick wall ceiling, and then it's got a brick wall ceiling at the very top. So all I'm using is the ceiling and the compression. I'm going to slow down the compression attack time way down to maybe 50 milliseconds, and then speed up the release to about maybe 70, and then I'll gradually kind of pull it down and pull the threshold down as it'll get louder. So the mix in your speakers is about to get significantly louder. So watch out. So I love the way this sounds. It sounds finished to me. So I pulled the threshold down to -18. It seems like it's a lot. If this was -18 on an L2, this would sound ridiculously terrible. It works completely differently. But for this one, the way I've got my ratios and my attack and release time set up, basically I want to use this more as a compressor, and then I'll let the brick wall ceiling. So basically I'm using the compressor to just kind of mash the entire mix up against the digital ceiling. The digital ceiling is holding it in place so that it won't go into distortion. I mean, if you push the compressor too hard, it'll just compress because you're driving the plug-in too hard or you're driving the bus too hard or whatever. But right now I'm not. It feels really loud. It doesn't feel over loud. One of the biggest problems with people who mix beats is you mistake loudness for goodness, and you over compress the hell out of your beat mix, and all of a sudden your kicks, there's no low end to them, it's not hitting, it's really mid-rangey and distorted, and I mean, it might otherwise be a good mix, but it's just, loud for loud's sake is just not good. Take it back a little bit and get it loud, but make sure everything is still hitting the way you want. I usually don't add my compression until the end of my mix. So that my balances are what they are, the drums are hitting the way I want them to hit, and then I can be careful when I'm shaping the mix bus that I'm shaping it the way that my mix was intended to, that the impact of my drums isn't going away, the clarity of my mix isn't getting muddled up. It's just everything is kind of a bit more louder and more finished, and and a little bit more glued together. That's kind of my goal with the mix bus. So I think this is it. I think I'm done. Check it out. All right, that's it. Ken Lewis, AudioschoolOnline.com. This has been Mixing Hip Hop Instrumentals, Session 3, club anthem type stuff. Hope you enjoyed. Take care.